Well, Mark, a game that many will have been looking at as soon as the fixtures were released. It's taken a while to come round.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I think when you look at the fixtures at the start, there was certainly a batch at the end of the season that you looked at as, I don't know, headline, eye-grabbing fixtures, really. And certainly one that, or ones that, firstly, players have probably been looking for from the start of the fixture list when they came out, but certainly supporters have been. And we get a couple of games towards the end of the season where we get to go against some really top teams, some iconic grounds. And it's certainly one to really look forward to. So I hope the players thrive in that atmosphere and against such a good side that have done so well since Kieran's gone in and taken over the team, and have still got a chance at the playoffs, and that we go and give the best account of ourselves and enjoy the atmosphere and the intensity of what the game will look like, because we know when we play the top teams what these games can be. So it's certainly one to be at the top of our game for and to be really focused for. And one that I think over 2,000 Cambridge fans are going to. So I'm sure one that they're looking forward to as well.
Yeah, Ipswich really have been good under Kieran McKenna, and the stat, I suppose, that stands out, aside from the fact that they're very hard to beat, particularly at home, keeping a lot of clean sheets.
Yeah, an incredible number of clean sheets, an incredible number of results and wins, and they've made huge progress actually in the way that they're playing, in the way that the results that they've got. And they're still in contention for the playoffs, which, let's be honest, they should be getting promoted automatically. So there's no surprise that they are in the fight for promotion places. The surprise probably was that they were so far away from that earlier in the season, but they've recovered that brilliantly, as you'd expect. Lots of options in the squad, and the way in which they're playing is very good to watch, in fairness. So it's been good watching them in the last week and really trying to study them. And we've watched them play recently against Plymouth, who were 6 wins, 6 clean sheets on the bounce going into the game. Watched them play against Portsmouth. Watched them play against Oxford in recent games that they've played, and they've done very, very well against those. So yeah, we know how tough the task is for the game, and I think not only this game signifies that, but probably the pattern of the season when we played the top teams. We've got to be at our very best to be a competitive team in the game and give ourselves a chance of taking something from it, for sure. And they're chasing something, and they've got their eyes on trying to get in those playoff positions. And they've certainly got the talent and the team to do that at the moment. So, a really challenging afternoon for us, but one that we have to try and make the most of and try to hit the best level that we can.
Inevitably, some parallels with Sheffield Wednesday the other day. Are there any direct lessons you can take from Hillsboro, or does it not really work like that?
I think that's sometimes difficult to just compare one game to another, because I do think the context of every game can be quite different, and the variables can be so vast, from why a game swings a certain way or why something happens. I think the pattern more so is just us against the top teams, and certainly us against the top teams away from home. So I think you try to draw lessons over a period of time. I mean, we're going through a huge review and analysis process on our season at the moment, but we're taking into consideration 40 games really, rather than trying to deal with games in isolation, because then you can get trends and patterns. So I think when we judge things, we try and do it over a longer period of time than one game. So there can, of course, be the outright lesson of the Hillsborough game is, if we're not there, we don't show up and hit a level, and they find their best, that's what can happen. And there should be no surprise. We knew that at the start of the year coming into it. That's the difference. This is a league of 2 leagues. Financially, you look at the way it's split with points, that there is no doubt there, and we're almost going away from home against a team in the division above. That's almost how you can look at it, and we've got to try and see if we can get something from the game. So we know what the bookies would say on it, we know what the whole world would probably say on it, but we also know what they said at the start of the season. So we know we're capable of potentially getting a surprise along the way, but we know how difficult that will be as well, and we have to learn the lessons of the probably 7 or 8 months, as opposed to just the 1 or 2 games in isolation.
Let's talk about some individuals, starting with Wes Hoolahan. He's been out of the side for the past couple of games, which is unusual for him at a weekend. Is he carrying a knock or any sort of fitness issue, or is it a case of just having a look at some other players?
Yeah, no, exactly. We've got quite a lot of options in attacking positions. So probably at the moment, Shiloh back, Sam, Wes, Jack, Ben Warman, James Brophy. others that could play. Adam May's played in an advanced position as well. So we know we've got plenty of options there. And so for us, trying to look at different partnerships, different pairings, different players in those attacking positions is quite important. So Nibsy did very well in the game against MK Dons. And then we went with pretty much that team again last weekend to try and have some continuity going into the week of a full week's training. And obviously, I think performance-wise, actually, I thought the performance against MK Dons was excellent and provided us no points. I thought the game against Wimbledon was, being honest, exactly what I thought it could look like. And it managed to swing in our favour. So we were delighted with that. I think the last couple of weeks have been good for us. And hopefully we can continue that going into this weekend. See, Wes is a Norwich boy, so he does like the Ipswich game. So we'll see where we are for that this weekend. But look, we know how influential he can be and has been. So with the options that we've got, give us a nice scope to, over the next 7 games, look at 1 or 2 different positions and players in certain areas to give us some, A, competitiveness for the right team for each game, but B, look ahead a little bit with an eye on next season and who else can feature in certain positions.
Yeah, with an eye on next season, I suspect at this stage you wouldn't want to give anything away, but do you have an understanding with Wes? Do you have a feeling of where that's likely to go even at this point?
No, not really. We haven't had discussions with anybody really about next season, too many anyway. So I think now that we know, we've got an idea of where we are, we can really start to put in motion the work towards next season. Obviously, things always go on in the background and away from the team, but it's been a particularly intense season in terms of the number of games and the quick turnaround so often between games. There's been very little time to project think and forward think too much. So this gives us a fantastic opportunity, hopefully, to get that work done, have those conversations, see where we stand. And obviously we'll get to work with that. Ben Strand works all year on those sorts of things. And my attention can really try to almost dual role between next year and finishing this year properly. So that's the plan now for the next 5 weeks.
With Lloyd Jones, presumably you're very pleased with what he's done over the past few weeks, particularly to come through the Shrewsbury game, wasn't it, where he really had to roll himself out and play because of a lack of options, and then getting through Sheffield Wednesday as well. He's really built the momentum. Yeah, I mean, the reality of his situation is when you miss a long period of time, it's quite hard to build your fitness back as a centre-back through small numbers of minutes. You've just got to go in and play. And quite often, you're not going to be at the top of your game when you first go in. That's first thing. The second thing is his end stage of his rehab meant he wasn't able to do any back 4 practices. We didn't have space on the training ground to get him working and shifting. So he's doing the final bit of his rehab against Wycombe Wanderers and Sheffield Wednesday, which is a pretty tough task. And then the Shrewsbury game, I thought he was very good. I thought he was outstanding against MK Dons, and last weekend against Wimbledon. And to be honest, that's what we expect. He's a really good centre-back. He's very good at the level, got good experience and can make us a better team. So delighted for him. It's important that he has a strong finish to the season. Whether or not we use him 3 games in the next 7 days is our decision to make, because we need to be sensible. We want him to be fit come the end of the season, but we also want to make sure him and us benefit from him being fit and playing. And yeah, I think he's made some good impressions on us and played really well. And we've got some top games coming up that he'll have to be at the top of his game for. But that's a good challenge for him after the period he's missed. I think he's really motivated to do that. With Laurent Talage on an individual level, I'm guessing he would have liked to have played more. But are you pleased with, from a development perspective, has he done well? I mean, the development bit's interesting. When you take a loan player in, the development perspective is probably more from his club side. So they'd have to comment whether they're pleased with his development side. And they'd probably say that it's hard to judge that because he hasn't played so much. We take players in and pretty much you've got to come and contribute to a winning team. And that is the stage of your development as to whether you do that or not. And his time's been limited. So it's been tough for him, really, in the first period. I mean, he came in firstly, the first month of the loan, we weren't training, so it was really hard for him to A, train, and B, show what he can do in training, because the number of sessions we had available was just so limited, and the type of training we could do was so restricted. And then he had some small minutes in some of the games. Sam was going well, scoring goals, playing as the 9, so it became difficult for him. And then, honestly, Joey's come back a heck of a lot quicker than any of us thought would be the case.
in some respects unsurprising, but at the same time, we certainly didn't see Joey back as early as we have. And look, he's the main man. So for us, that is just the way it goes. And substitute appearances have been limited with the certain games we've had or the situations in games. So Lawrence find that really tough so far. So all he can do really is keep training and keep trying to contribute to the squad, and then wait for an opportunity when that comes. And in the next 7 games, we'll see if that does arise or not.
With the injuries then ahead of this weekend, Liam ONeill with his calf, how's he getting on?
He hasn't been out yet this week, so he's been struggling a little bit. I don't know the plan yet for this morning. I'm not sure. We'll see him out on the grass this morning, but I don't think he's ruled out yet for the weekend. So we'll see what happens with him over the next couple of days. But he's been suffering a little bit with that, which is unfortunate because he was doing very well. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure on whether or not he'll be available for the weekend just yet.
Yeah, and without giving too much away, injury situation looking good for Saturday. Any fresh ones?
No, I think everybody else is good. Everyone's trained Tuesday, a good training day Tuesday, and then we'll get some preparation stuff done over the next couple of days. So I think everybody else is benefited, particularly in the case of Shiloh, Tracy, Jack Iredale, those types of boys that have been out. They've been able to actually have a couple of weeks of training, which has been really good for them. So we'll keep an eye on Jack over the next couple of days as to whether he can play any part. This weekend might come a bit too soon for him. Shiloh's obviously chipping away at adding to his match minutes. So we'll now just make a call whether or when's the right time to start him. But certainly over the next 3 games in 7 days, we can expect changes between the games and expect the majority of the players in the squad to be used throughout the Ipswich, Wycombe, Morecambe games that we've got in the next week.
Cool, that's great for me.
Mark, I know that Jensen Weir has unfortunately suffered a knee injury and might not be back with the club. Just if you can, what were your thoughts on his time with Cambridge?
Yeah, very good, John. I thought he had a good period with us. He had some good performances just before his injury, before Christmas. He was going very well. Very good character. And like a lot of younger players in the beginning, it's the first instance of playing senior football, which takes time to recover or to get used to. And as he did that and got a run of games, I thought he was influential. Nice athleticism about him, gives you a goal threat and an attacking threat. So I think when you judge his loan up until January, over the course of it, it was going well. And had the injury not happened, he was probably on course to play quite a lot more in the second half of the season. So, no, we're really pleased with him.
You mentioned to Peter that there are a few players that are still out or that are still questionable, but you've been able to, for the most part, get results. What does that say about the depth of this squad, and how pleased are you with the fact that you've had players come in, step in key positions and be able to get the job done?
Well, the depth of the squad's small. The reality is there isn't a big squad in that sense. So the depth of it is small and has challenged us. The strength of it is that whoever plays, they've done very well, and they look like a really together group of players. So I think the results that we've had throughout the year, with the challenges we've had with some really, really key players missing for large periods of time, and senior centre backs out for the majority of the season. Real attacking threat in Shiloh, who was doing so well for us, out for three months. Joey out for a large period of time when we played a lot of games. Liam ONeill missing periods of games. I could go through a lot of players that have missed spells, yet we've still come through with a quite consistent point return in each block of games. So I think what that says is just the strength of the team is the team, and that whoever goes in it have given a real go for themselves. And I think the position we find them in is a reflection of ourselves is a reflection of that, and a reflection of the good work everybody's done. And now for us, it's about making sure whatever the teams are over the remaining 7 games, we have a strong finish to the season, or we try and maintain the levels that we've hit so far, and then start to get ourselves prepared for what next season's going to bring.
I know that you still haven't officially clinched safety, but as you mentioned, you're at some point going to be looking ahead to next year. There's still 7 matches to be played. What will you be looking for in these, besides obviously officially clinching safety, what will you be looking for in these final 7 matches? What will be some of the keys that you'll want to see for the squad?
Yeah, well, we want to win some for sure. We want to make sure that we can add to the points tally. We want to try and finish higher in the table or as high as we possibly can. We want to see a development of ourselves against the top teams. You know, we've got to go to Wigan on Sky. That's a different experience for us. We've got to go to Sunderland and Ipswich, which are huge games, teams fighting for promotion, which will be electric atmospheres and really, really tough games against top teams. And we've got to show that we can compete and try and come out of those games with points if possible, but certainly with pride and performances. And then we've got some home games where we want to make sure we try and come out the right side of the results. So that's the first thing, results and performances massively. And then there'll be one or two others that get to play some games. We may be able to, as the season goes on, get one or two of the younger boys involved and see how they do. We may be able to play some of the boys that haven't played so much a little bit and see people in maybe one or two different positions or play in a slightly different way. But we won't tinker about with things too much in that sense. We'll be fairly consistent to what we've done, and we want to see which players have got that hunger and drive to finish the season with the same objectives I've got.
You mentioned how good Ipswich have been. They're fighting for the playoffs. We know how you're going to play. Well, how did they play? What will be some of the keys? What specifically will you have to do in order to be able to get a positive result against them?
Right, where shall we start? They're a very good side. I love your confidence about how we're going to play. I hope we do, and I hope we do play like that. And I also hope that we can show the ability to contain the team, that make the pitch very big and very good in possession, have lots of attacking players that create overloads in the attacking third of the pitch. They get to attacking wide positions very well. Midfield players that make the box, attacking midfield players that find passes and have a real comfort in possession, but a real athleticism to move around the pitch. I think they test our defensive organisation for sure. In these games that counter-attacks are going to be a thing for us, and we're going to have to do that well. But the way that we try to be as competitive as we can in these games is we have to try to control the game, control them when they've got the ball, control ourselves, and control the ball when we get it. That will be massive. It's always the case against the top ones. And in the end, you can't get away from the fact they will make us defend our penalty box. Whatever we try and do, they'll do it because they've got really good quality players and they do that. So we're going to have to make sure we defend the box very well. And as is always the case against the top teams, when your moments come in the game, you've got to make them count.
Cheers, Mark. Good luck on Saturday.
Morning, Mark. How important is finishing the season off strongly to you?
Yeah, it is important. I think it's important because the mentality of the team has been what it's been for 39 games, and it should be for another 7. I don't really see why that should change. It certainly won't change in the way we prepare the team or the detail we go into on the opposition. That's just sort of professional pride in that sense. But it's also important that the players show that desire and energy to keep hitting the standards that they've hit. There's plenty of players that have got things to fight for and their own personal objectives. So I'm sure we'll see that. And you want to try and make sure that we might be able to get a real shock result somewhere in this end of season period. That would be great for us. And we want to show that the lessons that we've had so far this year have been learned. And as long as our mentality is right and our physical commitment to games is right, which I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be, because it always is, then we're capable of continuing the season in a similar form to how we've gone so far. So there don't have to be too much of a genius to work out roughly what sort of points per game we're on, and that's what we want to try and stay on, really.
Yeah, Harvey Nib has been playing as a number 10 recently. I just wondered where that idea came from necessarily. He's not particularly been seen as a number 10 before, has he?
He did it a bit last year, but not so much, obviously, because Wes was the creative one that played there. We've obviously played against teams that have been building the game, and certainly MK Don's team that build the game a lot in their own half. So you need that athleticism and legs to try and press and get around them. So we did that brilliantly against MK. Gives you almost a midfield player that becomes a forward rather than a forward player that tries to become a midfield player. So he's given us a nice out of possession, pressing intensity and good legs and energy. He's done that very well. his performance against MK was very good, and if he scored, which he knows he should have done, he comes off the pitch with the champagne and everyone's saying what an incredible performance it was. So it was very close to being an outstanding performance, that one. And I think he deserved his place in the team last week, and between now and the end of the season, he has to try and continue giving us that wherever he's played. I think he's had a good season. He's played a lot of football. He's a centre forward in the front too. That's what he's been. But over the last 2 years, that opportunity or those opportunities have been very limited to him, and he has shown a mindset and the development to learn different positions and be effective for us. And he's had some excellent games in that position, or certainly wide, where he's played the majority of his time this season. So yeah, we're really pleased with him and the progress that he's making, and hopefully he can continue that to have a strong end to the year.
Just on Kai Mackenzie Lyle as well, joining Chelmsford City on loan, what was the thinking behind that move?
Yeah, he used to play. He's not played many games this year, so he just needs to go and get some games. He's been out injured for quite a while, so the opportunity came up. Speaking to Robbie Simpson, they were after a goalkeeper, so they asked about the possibility of it. So we said to Kai, look, this is on the table as an option to go and finish the season with however many games there are, and it was something that interested him. So yeah, it was. Hopefully, it's good for everybody, because I think it's important, certainly when you haven't played lots of games this year, to try and get some. But also just off the back of an injury and being out for a period of time, that's the best way of probably getting in some real exposure to game-related practice or football. I mean, our training probably is going to lessen a little bit. The number of sessions that we've got left is quite small, really, when you look at the fixtures and the way we're planned. So it's a good opportunity for him to go and play and to try and help Simo with the task that he's got on at Chelmsford.
Great, thanks, Mark.